Evening, everyone. The time is 5:31 p.m. I'd like to officially call our work session to order. Mr. Parker, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Daniels. Ms. Green.
Present.
Mr. Lawson.
Here.
Mr. Majors. Ms. Rawls. Mr. Rodriguez.
Present.
And Ms. Bowers.
Present. Please note Councilwoman Rawls was here. She'll be right back. And Councilman Majors is supposed to be joining us via Zoom. Okay, we have quite a bit of committee business this evening, so I'd like to be mindful of everyone's time and get started with the work of the Administration Committee. Our first order of business this evening, we will have an employee performance evaluation update from Ms. Joni Willingham, Director of the Bureau of Human Resources for the City of Harrisburg.
Good evening.
You could speak directly into the mic. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This year, the administration re-implemented the performance evaluation for management employees. What we did was created a new management evaluation, and this is for the 2024 budget year. The administration has reinstituted the annual performance evaluation for all management employees. The process was designed to recognize employee contributions and provide a formal assessment of employee performance in relation to standards and expectations for the position the employee holds. It's also to promote communication and provide useful feedback about job performance to facilitate better working relationships and provide a historical record of performance. The evaluations are to be conducted by the employee's immediate supervisor. Training was conducted for all evaluators, and during the training, the supervisors were instructed about the process, do's and don'ts when completing an evaluation, things to avoid, such as being overly lenient or being overly critical. That evaluation should not be personal and should not be based on isolated incidents. Supervisors are instructed to set realistic goals for their employees for the coming year. They were also told that when writing review, the performance is to be assessed in an objective, consistent, and accurate manner of the employee's performance. For future evaluations, it was suggested that supervisors have regular meetings with their staff in order to provide continuous feedback about performance goals or areas of concern. This would allow an employee to make corrections if needed in their performance or behavior and not be blindsided at the end of each year. Each supervisor was to conduct a pre-evaluation meeting with their employee. Supervisors were instructed to have a one-on-one meeting with each management staff person prior to completing the evaluation. During the one-on-one, they were to review the current job description with the employee to assure that it accurately reflected what the employee's job functions are. Any updates and changes or corrections were to be sent to Human Resources. This was also an opportunity for the employee to have input about their accomplishments, needs they may have, training requests, or areas of concerns they may have. The evaluation instructions were to prepare the evaluation. The evaluation period was from July 1 of 2022 through June 30th of 2023. All supervisors were required to make comments on the score they gave each employee.
Excuse me 1 second. If you could move the microphone closer, is it turned on? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
The evaluation was based on factors. There were 6 factors for non-supervisors and 7 factors for supervisory managers. Job knowledge and skills, work results, communications, initiative problem solving, interpersonal relations, work habits, and supervision and management. We use expectation ratings, whereas if an employee far exceeded expectations, they were given 5 points. If they exceeded expectations, 4 points. If they met expectations, 3 points. Below expectations were 2 points. And if they did not meet expectations, they were given 1 point. The raw scores were then totaled into points, and then based on the points they received was the increase they would be afforded. So it went from, if an employee scored between 7 and 10, in the supervisor category, they got a 0. If they had perfect scores, it went as high as 2.5%. And they were told that the percentages would be based on if council approved it in the budget.
Excuse me again. I'd like to pause for a technical difficulty. It's my understanding that Channel 20 and YouTube, there's no volume, so I don't want anyone watching to miss this information. So if you could please pause just a moment. Okay, correction, there is volume on YouTube. There may be a technical difficulty with Channel 20. Everyone could please pause for a moment. Thank you. Microphone's malfunctioning. Oh my. Okay, so we're going to take a brief recess until Mr. Hartman returns. He went to go check Channel 20 to confirm if there was in fact volume. So at 5:40 p.m. we will stand in recess for momentarily. Thank you for your patience. (5:41 p.m.) It's been confirmed there is in fact volume on Channel 20, so I guess I'd hate for you to do this, but do you mind starting over? Just because I want to make sure everybody's clear on
Okay.
the process.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, for the 2024 budget year, the administration has reinstituted the annual performance evaluation for management employees. The process was designed to recognize employee contributions and provide a formal assessment of employee performance in relation to standards and expectations for the position the employee holds. Also to promote communication and provide useful feedback about job performance to facilitate better working relationships and provide a historical record of performance. The evaluations were to be conducted by the employee's immediate supervisor. Training was conducted for all the evaluators. During training, supervisors were instructed about the process, do's and don'ts when completing the evaluation, things to avoid, for example, being overly lenient or being overly critical. That evaluation should not be personal and should not be based on isolated incidents. Setting realistic goals for the employee for the coming year. When writing review, the performance is to be assessed in an objective, consistent, and accurate manner. For future evaluations, it was suggested that supervisors have regular meetings with their staff in order to provide continuous feedback about performance, goals, or areas of concern. This would allow an employee to make corrections if needed in their performance or behavior and not be blindsided at the end of the year. Pre-evaluation meetings with employees. Supervisors were instructed to have one-on-one meetings with each management staff person prior to completing the evaluation. During the one-on-one, they were to review the current job description with the employee to assure that it accurately reflected what the employee's job's functions are. Any updates or changes or corrections were to be sent to HR. This was also an opportunity for the employee to have input about their accomplishments, needs they may have, training requests, or areas of concern they may have. Evaluations instructions were to prepare the evaluation. The evaluation period was from July 1 of 2022 through June 30th of 2023. Comments were required on the score you gave the employee. The performance evaluation was done by factors. The rating factors were, there were 6 for non-supervisor, 7 for supervisory. They were job knowledge and skills, work results, communications, initiatives and problem solving, interpersonal relations, work habits, supervision, and management. Ratings were based on expectations. Where they were far exceeds, you receive 5 points. Exceeds expectations, you receive 4 points. Meets expectation, 3 points. Below expectations were 2 points. And if they did not meet expectations, they were given 1 point. These points were totaled into a raw score, and the score was converted into a percentage increase. The increases range from 0% up to 2.5 and would be contingent upon council's approval during the budget year. Once the evaluation was completed, the supervisor would review the written performance evaluation with the employee. The employee would then have an opportunity to comment and sign off on the evaluation. If an employee was dissatisfied with the outcome, they were instructed to contact the reviewing officer, Mr. Hartman, the business administrator, for a meeting to discuss. The scoring was completed by HR. Mayor Williams and Mr. Hartman conducted the final review and approval of the evaluations. Probationary employees and new hires were not included in this process. This was due to the fact that they were not on board during the evaluation period. However, when speaking with Mr. Hartman, we had suggested that some sort of mechanism be put in place in the budget to allow them to be evaluated and receive an increase at the completion of their 1 year service. If this is not taken into consideration based on how annual evaluations are scheduled, an employee who started in employment in January of this year would not receive an increase until January of 2025. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll open the floor to my colleagues to determine if they have any questions regarding the evaluation process. I'll begin to my left with Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Joni, thank you for joining us. You had mentioned when they do not meet expectations, they're given 1 point. That would pretty much qualify like dissatisfactory, right? Is there follow-up training, or what's the process after that to get them back on point?
It would depend on the director. My recommendation would that they would do some follow-up training. I know within my office, when I met with all of my employees, they gave me good input on what they were looking for further training, certifications they would like to obtain. So, I intend on putting that in the budget for them for next year.
Awesome, thank you. And you had mentioned the trainings for all the evaluators. Do you know specifically what the training is? Is it like research-based, evidence-based? Is it something we drafted in-house?
It's something we drafted in-house, but we researched the information.
Okay.
So we took the evaluation and made a determination on things that they should do and shouldn't do, to try. Some of the supervisors were first-time supervisors and had never completed an evaluation.
Okay. And I guess for my final question, there was a kind of a way of saying some supervisors may be over lenient or overcritical, and they have to find that sweet spot. Just in your own words, could you articulate for the residents what is like an example of being over lenient, and what could be considered an example of kind of being overcritical?
I mean, if you have an employee that is doing their best, you don't want to discourage them. You want to encourage them to do better. And then you do have some occasionally where you have a supervisor who has an employee who's not doing their best, and they just pass them on through.
Gotcha. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, we're just discussing the employee performance evaluations that occurred. Management employees were evaluated from the time frame of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th of 2023.
Thank you. So if you could just come back around.
Yeah, no problem. Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. A couple of questions. Was there a self-evaluation portion as a part of this evaluation process?
I told them to email their employees and let their employees know that their evaluation was coming up and that they would have a one-on-one meeting, and recommend that they bring their accomplishments and things that they had, any areas of concern they had. 2 of my employees gave me long memos, letting me know all the things that they have done this past year. So
Okay.
I would hope they took my advice and did that. I won't see that goes directly to the director.
Okay. So it wasn't like a portion that was automatically built in. I know like some evaluations, like you'll get a link and you do your evaluation portion, and then your supervisor does their evaluation portion, and you sit down and have the meeting afterwards.
Our Laserfish wasn't set up for that this year. It
Okay.
was in the past. So next year, we look forward to making sure that we have all of those steps in that process. So the recommendation was to tell the employee up front, we're having this meeting, please come prepared to discuss your performance and what you feel your needs are in your job, and things that might have changed or struggles you're having.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then also, did we use any of the new technology as part of this evaluation portion? I know we were, during budget season last year when we were talking about evaluations, the hope was that some of the new technology upgrades, such as like Tyler Technologies, we'd be able to use that to do some of these evaluations. Did we do that, or was it something that we had already had before?
No, we did not. The HR system is not up yet.
Okay.
We're still in training.
Okay. All right. All right, that's the only questions I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. No questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, that was a quick.
It was very quick. So some of this might be repetitive. What percentage of the employees were reviewed?
Just the management personnel.
And how many were those?
I don't know the total offhand, how many management employees we have.
Okay. And did you make assessments about like their skills in terms of matching the roles that they were in, or was it just kind of the standard? Are they performing, not performing?
We reviewed job descriptions with them prior to doing the evaluation to make sure the job description accurately reflected their jobs. And they were allowed to give input for any changes or updates that there were.
And did you get any feedback on potential changes people thought would be useful for their roles later on?
Yes.
And
I know I did in my office. I don't know if other department directors or bureau directors did, but in my office, I did receive several job descriptions that have been updated.
okay.
So that, and it helps HR, so we know we have a accurate job description available for that position.
And I guess that's it for me. Thank you.
Just one final question. I wanted to revisit your recommendation of adding probationary hires and new employees as they were not included in this round of evaluations. You noted that a mechanism in the budget could be added and that these employees, the new hires and the probationary hires, would receive whatever their rated increase would be after 1 year of service.
Correct.
Is there a reason you landed on 1 year rather than 90 days after the probationary period would be
Because-
over?
All of the other management staff are being rated on a year.
Okay,
So I felt it only fair that they have to perform for a year before they got their performance evaluation and an increase. Some of them did interim evaluations for someone who's been, well, I have 2 new people in my office. An interim evaluation is not going to do them any justice because of the fact they've only been there 3 weeks. So I really can't do an evaluation and base anything off the 3 weeks they've been there because they're just learning. In the prior years, the last administration did this the same way where they did it in the budget. In past years, because I have been here for almost 36 years, they did it on the annual anniversary of the employee on an annual basis. So I think it's only fair that after they're here 1 year, that they be evaluated and given their increase based on the completing a year.
okay. And you said we don't know what percentage of employees were evaluated. So as a result, I guess we don't know how everyone fared in their scale either.
No, I don't have final numbers right now. There are still some that are still outstanding because of vacations, some family emergencies, workloads, so those people were given an extension. So
Okay.
they're kind of like the last few are trickling in.
Okay. Okay. Any other final questions? Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. Next, we have Resolution 64 of 2023. Mr. Parker, could you please read it into the record?
Yes, Resolution 64 of 2023. A resolution confirming the appointment of Ms. Emily A. Farron, Esquire, to serve as the Deputy City Solicitor for the City of Harrisburg.
Thank you.
Good evening, President
evening.
Bowers, council members.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind taking a few moments just to reintroduce yourself, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So I'm Emily Farron. I have been with you guys now since the end of February. This is my second stint with the city of Harrisburg. I'm coming back after about a year of working for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I've worked for the Commonwealth, several different agencies. I'm glad to be back with the city. One of the things that I like the most about my job is the variety of work. No 2 days are the same. So I'm happy to be back. Prior to going to law school, I was in the military. I hold myself to a very high standard. I hold myself, accountable to myself and others. I expect the same. So in the new position, since coming back, I was offered the deputy solicitor position. So at this point, on May 15th, we were able to bring in 2 more support staff. And so my role has expanded from the day-to-day legal aspect to also attempting to supervise other people. So that's new for me, and I've enjoyed doing that. We are lucky to have 2 legal assistants, 1 confidential legal secretary, and a lien specialist. That was a position that we put forth the Law Bureau the last time I was here as the assistant collections attorney. We really needed an additional person, and we were finally able to secure that person. So William's been a really big help for us getting our collections back on the table. And so he's really been helping the city, and we're looking forward to hopefully with this promotion into deputy, bringing somebody on to do the assistant collections position.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna ask what area is your favorite, but it sounds like you're pretty well-rounded and you enjoy all of it.
I do enjoy all of it. I would say I focus a lot on human resources. Our office interfaces a lot with HR. We do a lot of labor management issues. Honestly, I think Neil likes to refer to it as 24 topics that we touch on. Land use is something that has expanded my workload, so I do the zoning hearing board, the planning commission, and the architectural review board. I'm also go to the Dauphin County tax assessment appeals, so really you name it, and I'm probably there.
All right, thank you. I'll open the floor to questions from my colleagues. I'll begin with Vice President Green. Any questions?
I don't really have any questions for you. Look forward to continuing to work with you. Glad to hear that the Law Bureau is getting its staffing numbers back up, because I know they were pretty low there. Neil was getting lonely in the office, so glad to hear he's got some company. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers, and thank you, Ms. Farron, for coming here before us, taking the promotion. And the first question, I think you've answered it in your tone, but do you like your job?
Do I like my job? I love my job.
All right, great. And so we should expect to see you here for the foreseeable future?
That would be great.
Okay, great, because I see that you have a wealth of institutional knowledge beside you, and I know that it's coming to you, and our goal is to keep that institutional knowledge within the city. So my hat's off to you. Thank you for the work that you've done so far, and we're anticipating great things from you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
Just whether you have any potential conflicts of interest from previous work and how that might relate to your job here.
So at the Public Utility Commission, I was a prosecutor, and I handled, in large part, Pennsylvania one-call matters. So that is something that I can't provide guidance on for a year after leaving the state. But other than that, no.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. No questions, just more of a statement. I appreciate the work you've helped with thus far and look forward to continue working with you. Thank you for joining.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I move to add Resolution 64 of 2023 to our next legislative session agenda for a vote. We will now move to Resolution 65 of 2023. Mr. Parker, could you please read it into the record?
Yes. Resolution 65 of 2023. A resolution appointing Mr. Daniel L. Snow, Jr. to serve on the Coordinating Committee and the Technical Committee of the Harrisburg Area Transportation Study.
Thank you. Mr. Snow, if you wouldn't mind joining us.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening. Before we begin our line of questioning, I always like to review the role of the boards. So I'll provide that overview and then we'll open the floor for questions. So your appointment is to serve on the Coordinating Committee and the Technical Committee of the Harrisburg Area Transportation Study, or HATS. The Harrisburg Area Transportation Study was created in response to the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1962, which mandated regional transportation planning as a condition for receiving federal funds for transportation projects. The Harrisburg Area Transportation Study Agreement was made and entered into February 11th, 1965 by and among the Department of Highways of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the County of Cumberland, the County of Dauphin, and the City of Harrisburg. Mr. Snow, your appointment, I was looking for the noted term. Oh, it's an appointment effective immediately and shall continue until a successor is appointed. But are there actual dates and years for this appointment?
Yeah, I do not believe this has a time limit. It's the city's seat on the board.
Okay, thank you for confirming. Just always like to clarify that. Just one question before I open the floor to my colleagues. What impact do you believe you will have on this coordinating committee and the technical committee of the Harrisburg Area Transportation Study?
Sure, thank you for the question. So I have a lot of experience dealing with the folks that are in charge of that commission. I think that having a larger voice with any group is instrumental to helping things with whether it be a city or county. And I think that just having between my PennDOT background and knowing the folks that are there in conjunction with the additional seats filled, I think just the voice, having that voice is going to be helpful for the city.
Thank you.
Sure.
At this time, I'd like to open the floor for questions from my colleagues. I will begin to my left with Councilwoman Daniels. Any question?
Yeah, just whether you have any conflicts between your current employment and this appointment.
No, because I worked for a consultant to PennDOT, I will not have any conflicts.
Okay, and then when was the last time you would say you had to personally use our public transportation systems?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, when was the last time would you say you had to use any one of our public transportation systems?
Had to?
Or use
don't
them?
recall. I would say 6 years ago. I used the, it would be the Capital Area Transit, but I use your bus system.
And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. No questions for Mr. Snow. I've had the privilege to be introduced and do some work with you already, so I know your background and your passion for the work. I appreciate it, and I look forward to great things from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you. I don't have any questions at this time.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson, any questions?
Probably mostly just a question for me to get a sense for the passion that Councilman Rodriguez had brought up. What would you say that you see as your role here? How can you help improve transportation in this area?
I think that my experience working with PennDOT, they're very systematic in their approach to things, and I think I can carry that experience over to here. And I think that I'll be able to carry out the initiatives of the residents and the administration more efficiently and effectively, due to that background.
And will you have any connection with our public transit in this area? There was a question about have you used public transit, and I'm not certain with your capacity on this board, would you have?
I think that it would be more of a coordination effort than anything else, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're
That's
welcome.
everything.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. Just one kind of piggybacking off of Councilman Lawson. Is there anything you would hope to change or help make better with the public transportation system, and being why you could be on this board or would like to be on there?
I would say efficiency. Right now, our department has identified a lot of inefficiencies in the system, and I think there's things that we can do to the infrastructure to improve, those things. So yes, I do.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. I move to add Resolution 65 of 2023 to our next legislative session agenda for a vote. Next, we have Resolution 66 of 2023. Mr. Parker, could you please read it into the record?
Yes. Resolution 66 of 2023. A resolution authorizing the joinder of Franklin County, Pennsylvania with the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority, a Pennsylvania joint municipal authority.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. Good evening, Council.
Okay. Well, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about the joinder with the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority.
Yep. First, let me begin by thanking you for the questions regarding the HATS appointment and the coordination with public transit. So thank you for that. I appreciate those questions. So we began a work group, probably 10 years ago now, talking about regionalization, and we slowly worked towards that goal, which took place in 2021. Part of the negotiations of forming the new regional transit system, Franklin County was part of that and wanted to be part of the regional transit authority. But at the time, they did not have service that required a local match. And so the committee who was working on that said there's no seat at the table if there's no local match being contributed by your municipality. Last August, so it's been over a year now, they have service that requires local match. And so they've come back to the table. They've been an ex officio member, so they've been attending all the board meetings all along, an active participant. They just can't vote at this time. And so now they are contributing local match, and they're asking to join the authority formally now. And so that's the process that we're taking.
Okay.
So there would be a revision to the Articles of Incorporation, giving them a seat on the board and a vote, one vote.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I don't think I have any questions. I think you provided enough background for me. I'll open the floor to my colleagues to determine if they have any questions. I'll begin with Councilwoman Rawls. Any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers, and good evening. Thank you for being here again. And this may seem like we should already know this question, but I think just for the public who's listening, how does Harrisburg being a part of this Regional Transportation Authority, how does it help them as residents? How does it help our community?
I think there's strength in numbers, And so all kinds of things. We're a larger transit system, so we go after discretionary grants. The feds have moved away from earmark kind of funding opportunities to competitive grants. So we have a larger footprint that gives us more clout sort of in that federal arena. I think there are very tangible benefits. My wage as the director isn't just covered by City of Harrisburg, it's covered by all the counties. So that cost is spread out further. So in everything in between, I think there are a lot of benefits. And really, I think looking at our area as a region makes us more competitive economically. I get calls from employers asking to relocate to central Pennsylvania, and they want to know what transit looks like. And so, while we would love the jobs here specifically, right, but if we get jobs in Franklin County, that still helps the region grow. And so I think there are a lot of those kind of tangible benefits.
Okay, thank you. Does it also open up more transportation for communities across the municipality? Does it also do that, like more stops or better buses, more in the future, per se, updates?
I do think it gives those kind of opportunities of greater coordination.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers, and thanks again for this presentation. How many counties are involved in this regional cooperative?
So there will be 5 municipalities. So this Franklin, I'll work my way across, right? Franklin, Adams, York, Cumberland, Dauphin, the city of Harrisburg makes up the municipal authority, the Susquehanna Regional Transportation Authority. The authority has a cooperative agreement with 5 counties in the north. So we also manage, I'll go in geographical area again, Columbia, Northumberland, Montour, Union, Snyder, and Perry. And so we really operate as an 11-county transit system.
Okay, great. And then you said by this, we see the benefit of bulk buying, essentially, as we apply for grants.
Yes, or even our procurement contracts. We're buying oil filters for 400 vehicles. We can get better pricing because of that. So both sides of that equation, I think.
Okay, great. And then this is probably more of a statement, and I'm sure you already know it, because many of our residents, as you were saying, that rely on the public transportation, that's their only way to get around. And many of the jobs, when you're opening a large warehouse, the city is landlocked, so you don't build your warehouse here, you build it out somewhere where someone needs transportation to get there. And so our hope is, more routes going to more of these job centers that are just a little bit further away from our residents who don't have a car. So we applaud the work that you're doing, and keep it up. Thank you.
We want a transit system of that those who want to ride not have to ride, that it's so convenient that all of us want to use it, and that's our goal. And we have we're doing a lot of good planning. We're working on some good ideas, and we'll be back in front of you when they're closer to prime time.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you. I don't have any questions for you.
Okay. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
Yeah, do you have like a breakdown of the percentage usage per voting entity?
For like this ridership?
Yeah.
I absolutely, I don't have it with me, but I can certainly give that to you. If you go to our website, and I can send that to you, the link, our annual report, we have a breakdown of ridership across those both in our fixed route program and our shared ride program, and we put that in our annual report every year. So I'll make sure you get that.
And as of right now, so what's Franklin County's match?
90,000.
And so their match started last year, you said?
August
August of this
of last year.
of last year. Okay.
Yeah. So just over a year.
Okay. So what does that mean in terms of the service that they're providing?
They are providing, it's primarily in the borough of Chambersburg. And so they used to have a fixed route 20 years ago, and management problems that ceased to exist. And so they have the same kind of needs all of our communities have, getting people to work, grocery store, medical appointments. And we started what we call microtransit. It is an on-demand public transit system, If you're familiar with our shared ride program, it's like a dial-a-ride, you call ahead. This is on-demand, it's app-driven, it's within a 15-square-mile geofenced area, and you request a trip, and it comes and gets you and takes you within the borough.
And I mean, it's so fresh. Like, do we have a sense of like what they're
How well are they doing?
Yeah.
Oh, very well. We have 7 different areas that we've operating microtransit, that type of service, and they were the fastest to grow and now have outpaced everybody else. And they're really, it's going very, very well.
And then this is unrelated to the request, but were we able to benefit from the infrastructure investments in public transportation, or will this, is your idea that this merger will facilitate getting some of that money?
I think it's going to help us. Clearly, and hopefully you're aware of our large project on Cameron Street, our operating facility. We're looking at building a new one, and so that requires a lot of federal investment, and we believe that will help us. And so when we have letters of support, we're getting them from Franklin County, and we're getting from Chambersburg Borough for a facility that we're building here in Harrisburg because it supports regional transportation. So I think it gives us that extra strength.
And how will this like affect wages and work conditions? Because the last time anyone was here, one of the issues I didn't think about but had come up was the fact that, you know, drivers didn't have places to use restrooms and things like that. So will all of the drivers have the same like employment terms? And ideally, I want the money that, you know, that public transportation money to not just be a facility, but also like improve the quality of life of the people who are working. You know, this should be employment opportunities, ideally more routes and more usage for our residents and those who are participating. So how do you see all of that flowing through our system?
Right. So to be a good transit system, you have to have bus drivers. And to have bus drivers, you want to be a good place to work. And so I would encourage you at some point, maybe come see us on Cameron Street so you can see the current condition of the current facility. It's not necessarily an inviting location for people to want to come work. And so I think a new facility will make us more attractive to new employees and maybe even retain some that we have. As far as the restroom situation goes, it's a real serious issue. Most cities who have a transit system have a transit center or a transfer center. Now we have one, but there are no restrooms there. There's no places for buses to park, so the driver can take a break. We build in layover schedules so they can get a 15-minute or a 30-minute break. There's no place for them to park, and so part of this facility project is we're building what we're calling a temporary transit center, but transfer center where that can facilitate the drivers having restrooms at the end of their line every single time. Right now, we give them a list of places where we believe there are public restrooms along the route, and they have to try to find one for themselves. That is not ideal. There's nothing about that that's a good idea. And so this is one of the largest catalysts of why we're making this decision. They have to have a place to use the restroom and have a place to take a break, and we can't do that on Market Square.
So do you mind elaborating a little bit more on how the goal is this will make us more competitive for getting some of that infrastructure money.
Yep.
The infrastructure money will help us build out that facility. But can you talk a little bit more about the trickling down in terms of like wages, in terms of, expanded routes or deleting routes? I don't know.
Right. As wages, we have a collective bargaining agreement, and so we negotiate wages for the majority of the employees. And they're competitive. We watch our peers. We want to make sure that we're attractive in the market. A CDL license is a commodity right now that's hot, so we have to make sure that we're competitive there. As far as the service goes, we have, I kind of hinted a little bit that we're planning stuff, but we're looking at what we're calling high-intensity mobility corridors, where we can have certain routes that are heavily used be faster, how the bus stop's positioned, are there opportunities to partner with the city to get signal priority for a bus when it comes up to the signal light, it holds it a little longer green or shortens the red cycle so we can get through faster. The faster we go, the more cycles we can put on that bus route. So maybe instead of being every 30 minutes, it could be every 20 minutes. And that gives more service to everybody. So we're working on some of those plans. We're really early in stages of that. And then we want to talk about, we don't have a true pulse system right now where all the buses come together. The way the transit center works now, the bus comes in, drops off, and if you're the next bus coming in and you can't get into the transfer center and you want that bus that's leaving, you just missed your bus. And you wait a full hour before the next cycle comes through. That's not good transportation. The idea is that the buses all come together at one time. You get off on one bus, you cross the platform, you get on another, and you finish your trip in one sitting. Because you think about parents who have to take their child to work on public transportation. That's a two trip, which often means you have to start an hour and a half before you even go to work, because you have to take the first trip to daycare and the next trip to work. And if you have to wait an hour because you missed your bus, you just turned that morning into a 3-hour wait to get to work. That's not what we need for our community. We have to do better. And so they're the kind of things that we can work on with these projects through this effort.
Okay. And do you have a sense of what anticipated amount do you think the region could get in terms of the public transportation funds?
We're seeking 80 million.
Okay.
So it's a big number. So it's discretionary, right? We're going to work really hard, write good grants, and a little divine intervention could be good too, but we'll all the above.
And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for joining us this evening. Definitely a pleasure to hear the plans and the collaboration. You did mention CDL licenses being a hot commodity. Do you guys partake in any training, or would you be willing to work with re-entrants or individuals with strikes on their record to get them reacclimated into society?
We do all the above. So we are a training center, and so we've actually trained 2 of your employees to get CDLs.
Great.
So we're offering that to the city as well. So training, yes, and there was a second part of your question.
I'm working with re-entrants.
Re-entrants. We haven't had a lot of luck with that because of our DHS funding with child abuse. There's very high standards, so that
Right.
really creates some challenges there.
Well, with those that would qualify,
We
would
do,
you?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
And we encourage folks to apply.
Absolutely, that would be phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And then as far as grassroots, do you guys participate or partake in any initiatives that assist in low-income, at-risk families? Anything, even simple stuff, book bag giveaways, just anything to show like you have a presence in the community you serve.
That's interesting. Our employees often take on those kind of activities as community members. The authority that itself, with the funds that we get from the Federal Transit Administration, cannot be spent on anything but transit and transit-related things. So that creates some challenges. We spend our time looking at things like we're hoping to offer I'm giving all my secrets away tonight. We're hoping to do a new mobile ticketing option where it's called fare capping. So we know a lot of folks don't have the resources to buy the monthly pass, which gives you the best bang, right? So you buy a monthly pass and you can ride unlimited. Well, that requires you to have a chunk of money up front. So the idea with fare capping is that you pay as you go. And so as soon as you spend that dollar amount on your, like what would be equivalent to the monthly pass, the rest of your trips are free.
Okay.
And so they're the kind of things that we're doing for those families that are financially constrained, to figure out how we can help them be even more productive in society.
Absolutely. Would the merger affect the relationship with local school districts as far as getting those students to, the rides they need and get? Okay, that's awesome.
Right. I think one thing we have to remember is how we're funded. It comes to us by urbanized areas. So the funding that comes to Harrisburg, UZA, has to be spent here and only here. York can only be in York. Like the Federal Transit Administration watches that closely. So it helps us with getting competitive grants that are discretionary, that are typically more capital driven.
And then you had mentioned, thank you for that, by the way, and you had mentioned amending the Articles of Incorporation for joinder. Is that process already done, or is that something in the works?
Well, as soon as I you vote and you get the, I
Right.
get the approval, we will then have to submit it to the Secretary of State.
Yes, for the state.
For their approval.
And go through the whole ordeal. Would that include like bylaws and everything for the
Well, the
organization?
bylaws, I don't think are changing.
Okay.
It's, all we
Just
have
the
to-
articles of incorporation?
Right, just to
Okay.
give the one vote for recognizing Franklin County.
And we just double, triple check that none of the names or nothing would cause any conflict or, okay. Awesome. No further questions. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me.
I move to add Resolution 67 of 2023 to our next legislative session agenda for a vote. This concludes the work of the Administration Committee. The next committee business you will hear will be from, God bless you. God bless you.
Sorry, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've skipped
Yeah.
Resolution 67.
But-
Sorry, Mr. Graves.
So
Resolution 66 of 2023 will move to our next legislative session for a vote. Our final resolution for discussion is Resolution 67 of 2023. Mr. Parker, could you please read it into the record?
Yes. Resolution 67 of 2023. A resolution appointing Mr. Jason Graves to serve on the board of the Capital Area Transit Authority for the remainder of a 5-year term.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so this is an appointment to serve on the board of the Capital Area Transit Authority for the remainder of a 5-year term. Mr. Graves is being appointed to serve as a CAT board member for the city of Harrisburg to replace the vacancy created by Mr. Bruce Weber, whose initial 5-year term expired on April 10th of 2022, and who since has served as a holder appointee. Mr. Graves, your appointment to the board of the Capital Area Transit Authority for the remainder of a 5-year term for the period term ending on April 10th of 2027. Before I open the floor to my colleagues, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and sharing what impact you believe you will have on the Capital Area Transit Authority Board.
No problem. How you doing? My name is Jason Graves. I'm the Director of Business Development for the City of Harrisburg and also the Learner Administrator. How are you guys doing today? Good. The impact that I believe that I'll have is probably reversing the same thing that I said when I was actually accepted to the CERTA board. Being from the area and being from the city and just like basically piggybacking with Rich said earlier, trying to make the transportation system a lot better for the area and for the residents here. For the most part, he said basically every single thing that I could actually say. I remember the first time I actually met Rich and spoke with him, he actually answered every question that I had before I even got to answer it. So the main thing that I want to basically project out there is basically making a better transportation system for the area, for the residents, for people who are actually looking for work in certain areas so they can actually travel in a better way.
Thank you. This time I'll open the floor to my colleagues for questions. I'll begin with Vice President Green. Any questions?
No, I don't have any questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. No real questions, but Mr. Graves and I have had long conversations on this exact topic. So, just seeing you pushing forward and trying to find a way that we can improve the transportation woes for a lot of the people that are in our area is something I applaud. So thank you for coming forward and looking to fill this position.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers, and thank you for being here, Mr. Graves. No, I don't have any questions. I also know your enthusiasm for our transportation system. We've had conversations as well, and for your commitment to the city, so no questions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
Just any areas of potential conflicts of interest?
No.
That's it for me, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Graves, for being here. Pleasure as always. No real questions, more just a statement. Keep up the great work. Look forward to also trying to line up some students in local municipalities, come tour what you guys do down in transportation, and just let them take it all in, have a spend a day. So I'll be reaching out for that.
And quick note for you, I gotta talk to you after the session's over about something.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you. But no real questions. Thank you. No further.
Thank you. Yes.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
Maybe a little bit unorthodox, but so this guy has been an asset to me in his short time on the SRTA board and now on the CAB board. He's a great resource. Probably if there's a drawback of a regional system is for the executive director to keep their finger on the pulse of everything of a system that size is hard. Having someone like him, he calls me all the time, tells me what's going on. This is making those connections. I have a question like, in the community, who do I need to work with on this? He knows the answer. And you mentioned enthusiasm. He's dripping in it. So it's been great to have him on board. So that's why I hung out, just so I could make a comment, because he's been a great addition. So.
We appreciate your glowing recommendation. So I move to add Resolution 67 of 2023 to our next legislative session agenda for a vote. Now, this concludes the work of the Administration Committee. We will now move to committee business of the Budget and Finance Committee. I will defer to our Budget and Finance Committee Chair, Vice President Green.
Thank you, President Bowers. So for the Budget and Finance Committee, we will start with Resolution 63 of 2023. Mr. Parker, would you read that into the record for us?
Yes. Resolution 63 of 2023, a resolution ratifying the professional services agreement with Conrad Siegel Incorporated to continue to provide actuarial services consisting of an other post-employment benefits valuation as required by the Government Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 75.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
If you would like to start off giving us a little background information on this, whoever's here to represent it.
Yeah, certainly. Good evening, everyone.
Good
Council
evening.
members. Thank you, Vice President Green. Brian McCutcheon, Accounting Manager. This particular service is for the city's actuary who has done the annual work for the other post-employment benefits, or OPEB, for the city. Currently, the valuation is of January 1 of 22, and it relates to the current fiscal year. The previous fiscal year, 2022, and then they will do an update later to update for the 2023 fiscal year. It's a significant valuation report that they provide, and it provides insight, and it's relevant to the financial audit because it details out the significant liability, which covers all three groups of that liability, namely the police and fire liabilities, and also the non-uniform portion of that liability. So it's a completely, actuarial services that they provide.
Thank you very much. And for how many years have they been providing this to us?
At least, I think at least 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
They do the valuation every other year, but they always provide an interim update.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
I don't really have any questions on this. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues. It seems pretty straightforward to me. I'm going to start to my far left with Councilwoman Daniels.
I mean, could you give us like a status update on the OPEB account? Have we funded it, or are we not funding it? What's going on with it?
Yeah, I think you're aware. There's it's still in process. An OPEB trust asset that is on deposit. The liability right now I mentioned all three portions of that. At the end of 2022, it totals to approximately $177 million. It's quite a large number. But the funds that are on deposit that came out of the Strong Plan workings are approximately 3.9 to 4 million that's on deposit right now. But that trust, I don't think that's still, it's not been finalized yet, I believe. That's not been completed.
So there's real issues about the structure of the trust based on trust-related law. Every member of a trust board is fiduciary, and an underfunded trust creates these sort of odd obligations, and this one is so dramatically underfunded based on the accounting principles and the audit principles that you report on OPED, that they would literally have, if you look at that, of roughly $4 million of $177 million. Their hands would be so dramatically tied. So the reality is someone has to come up with a different path for this. You know, that's the simple reality of it. And that will take a court order related to how it was created. But right now, if we sat them there, there's a real question they'd be allowed to do anything for decades, because they have a fiduciary obligation to not, bankrupt the trust, and the trust technically is already, 98% unfunded. So, so that wasn't really thought about at the time it was created, but it's just one of those realities that came up as we're sorting it through.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Bowers, any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Sure.
Councilman Lawson, any questions?
And this is probably very basic, but is this a pension fund, or what type of fund are we looking at here?
It's not pension. It relates to the post-employment medical commitment that the city's made to its employees, and the liability reflects that focus on medical.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's everything.
Sure.
Councilwoman Ross.
Thank you, President Green, but no, Vice President Green, I'm sorry. I don't have any questions.
Thank you very much. And I'll come back to Councilman Rodriguez. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Post-employment medical, would that be due to a commitment the city made after they either leave or depart? There's other actions to take?
It's based on the current policies in effect for all three labor agreements, and there's also a carve-out definition of how management employees are to be treated over the course of that, the timeline from whenever you leave the city until you reach the Medicare age. Yep.
All right, thank you. Sure. No further questions.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, I will recommend Resolution 63 of 2023 be moved to the next legislative agenda.
Madam Chair, just for housekeeping, there is after the introduction of this on August 22nd, Conrad Siegel sent a more formal agreement. The resolution now just reflects the ratification of the current year. Their agreement will extend it for another year. So that's going to come down for next Tuesday with an amendment. We had forwarded that exhibit. It's identical. It stays the same, but it's just, instead of having to come back again and do it all over again later in the year, it'll take it through the end of 2024.
Okay, thank you. Next will be Resolution 68 of 2023. Mr. Parker, would you read that into the record?
Yes. Resolution 68 of 2023. A resolution approving the fourth proposed 2023 operations-related budget reallocation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We received a supplement as well for that was emailed out this afternoon. So whenever you're ready, we're ready for the presentation.
Excuse me, Council, for me being under weather today. Before you is the fourth proposed 2023 budget amendment or budget reallocation. We just have 3 items on it, highlighted in footnotes A through C. To start off, Footnote A is a simple transfer of $177,000 from the maintenance service contract line down to their capital equipment line and information technology. I have Nathan Gramine here to speak a little bit further on the new server backup system that they're looking to accommodate. But if you'd like me to continue on, I can go down, or if we can go to questions now.
Yes, we could go to questions now. I think that'd be great. So if you could just give us a little information on this new server system.
Sure. Hi, I'm Nathan Grumbine, Deputy Director of IT for the City of Harrisburg. It's a pleasure to be here with you all tonight. What we are looking to do is transfer this money. The money was originally earmarked to cover any additional costs associated with Microsoft licensing for the year. So if Microsoft, we had to change platforms, add servers, anything like that, we had that money there to accommodate that. We are not looking to change our infrastructure at this point any more than where we're at. So that money would have been unused. And what we are looking to do is transfer this money to the capital budget so that we can purchase a new backup platform called Rubric. That would help with, and it's kind of the first step in the process of our new cybersecurity plan that we're working to develop. That would give us the ability to have what they call an immutable and air-gapped system that would protect us from ransomware attacks in the future.
Thank you. Any of my colleagues have any questions specifically on the information technology Section A portion? Seeing none, thank you very much. We can move on to the next portion, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Nate. Excuse me. The second part of the reallocation is for the, excuse me, the city was rewarded, or we receive a credit for a credit from Capital Blue for wellness initiatives. And I have Joni Willingham, our HR director, here to kind of explain a little bit more. The credit is ultimately a $25,000 credit, which we reimbursed, and she can further elaborate on the credit.
Where do I find that portion?
So there was an email sent out today at, it came from Tiffany. So Tiffany sent it at 3:53 p.m. All right.
So, Capital Blue Cross has awarded us $25,000 for healthy initiatives that we can use for anything for our employees for health related. We could use it for a health fair, buy equipment for the police department weight room, incentives for employees out at Public Works. We want to do, we've already done some lunch and learns, and they've gone over very well, where they actually do presentations, we purchase lunch, and employees come and sit and watch the presentation. So that's what the $25,000 is for. The problem is that we have to pay up front, and then they reimburse us the money.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. I guess, so have you exhausted with the lunch and learns and the other things that you've done or you're planning to do? Have you exhausted the $25,000, or do you anticipate, I guess I should say?
We are hoping to exhaust it all before the end of the year. However, we're like at a stale, because we don't have any more funds to
Okay,
spend
up
towards
front.
it.
Toward,
Right.
okay, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. And we're ready for the next section.
All right, moving along to footnote C. This alludes to the drawdown of ARPA funds for the Bureau of Fire's upgraded fire radios and radio operating system. And I have Captain Wise here as well to elaborate on the amount of which is $990,000 And I'll leave Captain Wise to further elaborate.
So, good evening, everyone. So, from a historical standpoint, Chief Enterline can't be present this evening. He kind of called me up on where this project was. Just to kind of go back a little bit, I guess in the beginning of the ARPA funding, the initial project for the radio upgrade started out at roughly about $700 and some thousand. Unfortunately, in that time period, resource costs, inflation, design costs, the price went up to, it started out at 1.1 million. We were able to negotiate that down to 990,000, and the success of that was due to the radio upgrade being tied with Cumberland County. Cumberland County is doing a full public safety upgrade of their system. So by buying our radios system in bulk with them, that's where the mass savings was, which was about a 40% or a little less than a 40% savings across the project. So it made it much more effective. It also reduced our individual purchase costs across some of the different radios that we're purchasing. There was also a savings designed in looking at our entire system. It was determined that we would upgrade everything but the base station radios, which are located in the physical facilities. Those radios are perfectly fine with the upgrade. They can stay as is. So we're just focusing on the mobile radio purchases for each individual firefighter, and then the upgrade of the apparatus radios as well.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to questions from our colleagues. Anyone have any questions regarding this?
I do, Madam Chair. Thank you, Captain, for joining us. Just with the purchase of the new equipment, how does that look? Does it go on a Cumberland County's purchase order from the city, or how specifically would we make that purchase?
I don't think I'm in a position to be able to describe that. I can follow up with Chief Enterline.
Please,
and we
thank
can
you.
provide that on how that financial agreement works.
Yes, just so we could always,
Yeah,
just,
absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for that. No further questions.
Thank you very much. I don't really have any questions regarding this. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time.
That'll conclude the
I was about to say, I believe
items.
that concludes all the items on the budget reallocation. Are there any questions in total about the budget reallocation, the proposed budget reallocation, excuse me? And anything you'd like to add?
Just a minor point of clarity on this. I think the original schedule that went out, I think it was dated around about the middle of August, the 16th or 17th, to reflect at the time what the balances were as far as actual expenditures and available budget. So with this revised schedule, it's been updated to cover the end of the month since we were able to do that. So it does capture all the way through the end of August. Just wanted to make that point.
All right, thank you very much. And I do believe the revised schedule will be amended in next week. So, all right, thank you for that. I'm going to recommend this be added to our next legislative agenda. And last but not least, for the Budget and Finance Committee, we have Resolution 69 of 2023. Mr. Parker, would you read that into record, please?
Yes. Resolution 69 of 2023. A resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a professional services agreement with Boyer and Ritter, LLC, to perform the City of Harrisburg's annual audit and financial report, DCED/CLGS/30, for the year ending December 31st, 2022, and an addendum to the professional services agreement related to completed 2021 annual audit.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind giving us a summary of this resolution.
Yeah, certainly. Hope you're not tired of hearing from me. This is in two parts, so I'll do them one at a time. The audit committee recently convened and met back on August 9th, and we were able to present, and they were able to review the final audit for the city for fiscal year 2021. That included the normal comprehensive report and also the single audit that goes along with that. The auditors were here. They made a presentation to the committee and also went through the single audit findings and the management letter that they offer every audit period. They also, subsequent to that presentation, the committee voted to approve Boyer and Ritter for an additional 1-year extension for the 22 audit, which agrees back to the original audit RFP for 2022. The first part of this is the 2021 audit. There's an addendum to the engagement letter for 2021 where they are requesting additional fee on top of their annual amount that begins the audit. Their annual fee has been approximately $116,000 for each of the 3 years we've completed now, 2019, 20, and 21. They're requesting an additional $22,652.50 to be exact, to be layered on top of that fee for scope modifications that occurred during the performance of the 2021 audit. Mainly, the best way to describe that is as I tried to work with them and keep the flow of the audit moving, but there were stops and starts throughout the course of it, which created some delays and them finalizing the work papers in various sections for the city's financial areas. So this is, again, to complete the fee for the 2021 audit. This is the first part.
All right. So the first portion is the additional $22,000 requested by Boyer and Ritter due to services outside of their original scope, correct? Essentially,
It's mainly for delays encountered during the performance of the audit, as far as being, basically getting them the work they needed to keep their schedule and staff moving at their originally planned audit timeline.
okay.
Yeah.
And what measurements are we putting in place to ensure this doesn't happen with the 2022 audit?
Yes, we've increased our staff recently, and I'm planning on utilizing such staff to assist me further with that. And quite frankly, also I'd like to try to cut back on drifting over into the budget management area of the city's finances. I'm working, in tandem with Marita and also Tim along those lines. So I think, as you're anticipating, as we get closer to 2024's budget prep, I think you might expect to see less of me.
All right. Okay. Anyone else have any questions regarding this first portion of the Resolution 69?
I don't think it's about the resolution specifically, but more so about the operations of the audit committee and its role with this process. Like, did we have a full capacity audit committee? How do they facilitate the auditing process, basically?
That committee is to normally meet quarterly. Recently, they've had some drop off in members. Originally and recently, it was a 4-member committee. We lost 2 of the members, and actually the 2 remaining members at this past meeting, one of them has resigned. One is staying on, he was the acting chair, and the committee though has been recently repopulated with 4 new members. So the previous chair is hanging on to work with them to smooth that process, to introduce them. So their first, the 4 new members were part of the meeting that we just had back in August. Our auditor, Boyer and Ritter, is aware of that too, and the lead auditor wants to make more periodic updates to keep them informed of the progress of the audit, to see how we're doing versus the envisioned timelines.
Okay, I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none? All right, I guess we're ready for the second portion of this.
Right, and the second part of this is for the 2022 audit, the proposed engagement letter. As I mentioned, the audit committee approved the one-year extension for Boyer and Ritter. And they're proposing an increase in their annual fee. This time for 2022, it's $117,955. Which is still very comparable to the prior 3-year RFP, which I mentioned was approximately $116,000 for each audit year.
All right. Any questions or comments on this portion? Is there a specific reason that they gave why they look to increase the rate?
Do you mean the annual amount?
Yes.
I think because they held their rates consistent for each of the 3 years, it wasn't increased at all. So I think this is just reflecting recent times to provide a modest increase in the annual fee.
All right.
And I'm just not seeing it on this is Exhibit C, right? Where is the final amount?
Exhibit C is actually the original 2022
Okay.
letter. Exhibit A is the new quote. Exhibit B is the quote for
extra.
the addendum for the last one.
Okay.
So, and there's actually, was sent out today, it's going to be an Exhibit D. After they sent a bill for that addendum, they sent a draft agreement, which is just adds to it, just to formalize those terms.
So,
And the RFP that was put out by, on behalf of the city council was for a 3-year agreement with 2 one-year extensions. So after this one, there has to be a determination whether the last extension is exercised. Either way, the process for the next RFP has to commence, which has been a cooperative effort with the council, the audit committee, and the finance office over the years.
Okay.
what page is it on?
Which page? The number?
Yeah.
It's in Exhibit A, and it is on page,
I guess in the
It's
PDF.
page 10.
Page-
When I look at mine, it shows
page 7.
Page 7, yeah.
Fees and costs.
Oh, go ahead and move past me while I'm reading this.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding Resolution 69 of 2023, or anything you'd like to add?
Yep, please.
Because it is a lot of papers, and so the total will be $117,995. Well, I said it all messed up. $117,000.
Correct, for 2022.
Okay. Sorry, it's a lot of numbers. Okay, right, which went up, like, I guess, 1,000, right, from last year was 116,000.
Maybe to give you some perspective, in prior times, again, Boyer and Ritter, the first engagement they did for the city was the 2019 audit. Prior to that, we had a different firm, and that firm went back several years. And of course, every year you would expect to see some type of an increase. But when we got to the end of the audits they provided for the city with the previous firm, the city was encountering fees that were approximating $135,000 to $140,000 on an annual basis, just to give you some perspective.
Okay, and I could be really messed up, and sorry if I am, but the 22,000, is that included in the 117,000, or those two separate bills?
They are separate. That's like an additional layer that's tacked on, being requested to be tacked on to the 2021 audit fee,
Oh, right.
which was the one that was 116,000.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So the reality is, the last 2 years, we've sort of caught up with the cost of the prior auditor. We added 20-some thousand both years. They were the low bid, but, the reality is, we've paid about the same now for about the last 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification from you both.
Any other questions or comments?
Sure. And then with our new staff, our goal is to not stay at that same rate that we've been paying for the last several years. That's our goal, right? With adding new people,
Right.
not paying the,
Correct.
I guess you say penalty.
Yeah, to avoid another scope modification or delays that throws off the timeline of the audit, that creates the stops and the starts. That's what we're trying to, minimize as much as possible.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to recommend that Resolution 69 of 2023 be added to the next legislative agenda. Thank you all for being here tonight. I appreciate your thorough presentations, and I appreciate you bringing people from the different departments to explain some of the budget modifications as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I believe that concludes the work of the Budget and Finance Committee.
Thank you very much. We will now move to the Community and Economic Development Committee. I will defer to our chair, Councilwoman Daniels.
Thank you. Next, we'll visit Resolution 55-2023. Mr. Parker, do you mind reading it into the record?
Yes. Resolution 55 of 2023. A resolution approving the preliminary/final land development and lot consolidation plan for 1933 and 1951 Her Street, filed by Nirmal Singh and Mohinder Kaur Gill with M&N Incorporated to demolish the existing diner and gas station structures, consolidate the lots, and construct a new gas station and convenience store, along with associated site and access improvements.
Thank you. Before we hear from the applicant and substantively from the city, would the solicitor mind giving a brief overview of the legal place that we're in regarding this application?
Yes, thank you. So this application was filed, sorry, the date here. On April 20th, 2023. It subsequently went to planning and zoning. We're here before you tonight, thanks to the applicant to, in writing, agreed to an extension of time for City Council to hear and then vote. And that extension of time is granted until September 15th.
And the initial deemed approved date was?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Neil walked out right as?
August 18th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So before we move on to the applicants of the city, Mr. Knight, would you mind giving us an overview of this property?
Sure, and good evening, council members. So the project before you tonight is a lot consolidation land development plan for 1933 and 1951 Her Street. These properties are located about at the intersection of Arsenal Boulevard and Her Street. 1933 is what was once a diner, so you may be familiar with that, surrounded by surface parking, pretty much entirely paved. And then the adjacent property, 1951 Her Street, is currently a gas station with a small convenience store kind of in the middle of the gas station islands and canopy. And the applicants are proposing to demolish all the structures on site and build a kind of newer, more modern convenience store at the western end of the site. So basically on the part of the property where the diner is now, to leave the gas station islands and canopy, essentially where they are on the eastern end of the site, and then to provide the required amount of off-street parking around the property, and also to enhance the interior circulation of the property so cars can drive around, the refilling trucks can more easily access the parts of the property that they need to. And so really what the project is overall is kind of an updating of the use that's on there now, but because they'll be demolishing things and rebuilding a new structure on site that triggered the land development plan application. From the city's perspective, we see this as being kind of a modernization of the existing use on site. The larger convenience store aspect will allow the property to better serve the community. Right now, it's a very small little enclosed kind of convenience store space, so they'll obviously be able to have more retail options, maybe even like a walk-in fridge. I'm not sure exactly if they have that as part of the project. They'll probably be able to tell you a little bit more about the interior. But then they'll also be improving the site and access aspects of the property, really kind of creating internal walkways into the site so that people aren't just walking through kind of like an informal parking area. They'll be providing landscaping around the site. I believe that one of the conditions of the Planning Commission was to incorporate electric charging stations, and especially given their proximity to Interstate 81. And the applicants have indicated that the project proposes to basically rough in those utility connections so that they'll be able to put those in, I think, when the time's right. So from the Planning Bureau's perspective, we feel that this is a good project for this particular site, and that, again, it will be a benefit to the surrounding community. With that all being said, the Planning Commission recommended that City Council approve the request with the following conditions. The applicants must address the comments from the City Engineer's Office prior to the application being heard by City Council. This includes aspects such as the proposed retaining wall, which would be on the south side of the site, truck circulation on site, PennDOT approval of a highway occupancy permit because Hurst Street is a state route, and so any of the changes like closing some of the vehicular access points that will be unnecessary under the proposed design do require an HOP. And then finally, approval from Capital Region Water, and this includes the provision of a photometric plan as well to confirm that site lighting will be in conformance with the zoning code, and that's essentially ensuring that there's going to be no light spillover onto adjacent properties. The applicant will construct or install new ADA-compliant sidewalks along the northern and eastern frontages of the project site, and that is the Hurst Street and I forget what the adjacent 20th Street side, so that they'll be ensured that if any cracked sidewalks, any missing sidewalks will be replaced. Again, to benefit the surrounding community largely, as well as appropriate curb face reveals, and the vehicular access will be treated as a driveway curb cut, in which the driveway elevates to the height of the sidewalk. And then the applicant should provide a direct pedestrian connection to the convenience store to the sidewalk along Hurst Street, which I believe they've agreed to do. The applicant must provide bike racks on site, and this is due to the increased parking that's going to be required. The Bureau recommends that these be installed near the entrance to the convenience store and accessible from the Hurst Street sidewalk, so that people riding their bikes there don't have to go like all the way into the site or interact with vehicles as much as possible. And then any new signage on site will be in conformance with the applicable regulations of the zoning code, or if not, will receive approval for a zoning relief request from the zoning hearing board. The applicant should provide a landscaping plan indicating whether any landscaping will be installed in the areas around the proposed convenience store building. And I believe they've generally committed to that, but we haven't seen that in a plan set. And then finally, as noted, the applicants should consider the inclusion of publicly accessible EV chargers on site to accommodate the growing number of electric vehicles, and also in consideration of the property's proximity to Interstate 81, and the applicant's design is working towards that. The Planning Commission recommends that Harrisburg City Council approve the request for the following reasons. The proposed development will replace two deteriorated and underutilized structures that have had a blighting influence on the streetscape, and will construct a new convenience store use that will enhance retail options for surrounding residents and workers. Approval of the proposal will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood and will provide benefits such as increased permanent job opportunities and temporary construction jobs. And finally, the project will result in the removal of several unnecessary curb cuts along Hurst Street, clarifying vehicular access to the site, removing pedestrian vehicular conflict points, and making access and circulation safer for all road users.
And what does rough in mean?
Essentially, they'll provide, the conduit underneath the driveway and the parking areas so that they'll just be able to connect EV charging stations. They're not going to have to dig everything up in the future to be able to run this new utilities to those locations.
Thank you. And then for clarification, were the two properties owned by two different owners, or?
They're
The
currently
single-
under
okay.
single ownership, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if applicants, if you don't mind introducing yourselves and giving us a brief description of the project. And please include timeframes for completing tasks.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Max Stoner with Glaze Associates Engineers. We did the plans for the things. Yeah. Good evening. This is Mr. Nirmal Singh Gill.
So he's the owner of the property, and then I'm his daughter. I'm essentially like kind of running the project on his behalf.
Yeah. I don't know. You want to explain the project?
Sure.
Real briefly.
So we're actually just trying to rebuild the whole area, the two
Please,
sites.
Please
and
make sure you're using the microphone so that.
Thank you. So we're actually going to demolish everything that's on site right now and then just build a bit bigger store, just more access for the community overall to give them more options. We're going to have probably like a lot larger fridges, a lot larger coolers, just for more food options, more beverage options, and then we're also going to have actual food on site as well as beer as well. But we're going to be offering hot foods, so that's going to be an additional option. The diner on site has been closed for 2 years, so I think we do need that food option there in the area. And then we're gonna be keeping the 4 pumps, but they're gonna be spread out more, so they're gonna be utilized a little bit better, where it's just more space for the cars to actually park and use all 4 pumps at the same time, rather than what they have right now, which is a little bit too close together, and we can't get enough cars in there. And then I think we're just trying to just have a better look for the place overall. That's where we are.
And then do you have timeframes for?
Oh, right. So I think that's really dependent on the city, when we can get a permit. Everything else we have ready to go. Soon as we have check marks from PennDOT, Capital Region Water, and the City Council, I think we're good to go. City engineers and the Planning Commission, we're ready to go. So our construction timeline for what we got from the construction team was 4 to 5 months. And then our fuel suppliers are giving us a 2 to 3 month timeline, and they can start the fuel suppliers can start in November, as soon as November, and then the construction folks can start right now, actually. So they're working on their demo permits as far as I know.
Okay, so that's it for me. I'll go ahead and open up for questions. I'll start to the far right, Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you, Councilwoman Daniels. I just have one question. Will your bathrooms be ADA accessible?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Right, yes.
I know a lot of people, like you said, it's right there on her street, and people are stopping to use the bathroom, or people from the community, and I don't know, how accessible they are, if you're going to allow people to. People go on morning walks, whatnot, and I mean, you need a bathroom, just like we're talking about with the bus drivers, and you don't always have a lot of places to stop, so it's nice when a store or a community, a business opens up their bathrooms to us, so.
Yeah, they should be ADA accessible and then hopefully clean all the time
Yes,
as well.
right, that is the rough part, but yes, thank you for that.
Councilman Lawson?
Thank you very much. And then you alluded a little to like food options that would be available. Could you expound on that just a little bit more?
So what we had thought about was doing Crispy Crunchy franchise. So it's going to be fried chicken and then like options that go with it as well. I'm not sure of their exact menu, but that's the option that we had explored. We have family that's worked with them before, and they seem to be a pretty,
Okay.
they seem to be accessible franchise, and then the food seems to be popular as well.
Okay, that sounds good. Would you also be open to like fresh food, like fruits and vegetables and the like of that?
Yes, so we are gonna have that open cooler type place in there. Just, we have a lot of fridges in there, so
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna have those fruit options, cheese, fruit, and, and probably cut up fruit, similar to what Sheets and Wawa's offer, but not like whole food fruits.
Right. That's what I would expect.
Yeah.
That's fine. And then have you owned the station to the point where you've had it during operation, or did you basically buy it for this expansion?
No. My father's had the place since like 2006. We've ran the place for many years, and then we leased it out for a little bit, but he is taking over, and then, he got it back now, and that's why we're gonna do the expansion. The leasing no longer wanted to be there, and we didn't want to run it in the situation it was in now. It just seems to be deteriorated, like the credit cards don't always work at the pumps, and then the canopy's like half falling apart, so.
That's why
I don't
I
like
asked.
to look, I wouldn't go there, so.
Yeah, that's why I asked, just to
Yeah.
make sure. So you had the same feeling that I've had as I've driven past or tried to ride through to use it. We're excited to see improvement, and just love to see the commitment that you're putting forward for what you're doing here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vice President Green?
Thank you. I don't really have many questions. I guess just one would be any community outreach that you've done, or any conversations you've had with people that live in the area and some of the feedback they've given.
I mean, we've, every time we're on the site, we've talked to people as far as letting them know we're gonna be renovating, because obviously the place is closed, so they do wonder what's going on and stuff. So we do let them know we're gonna be renovating and putting a better place in there. Not everyone, but like, many people are aware the diner is gonna be demoed, and I think there was an article in Penn Live at some point, right?
Yeah.
Where, it did mention that the site was gonna be demoed, so I don't think we had any issues or bad feedback, at least.
It's mostly a commercial area.
Right.
And the residential area is above the facility, so there's a couple streets back there, but not too many people right there that are affected. And the lighting and everything will be down below, because they cut out the hillside years ago to put in the diner and the gas station. So it's
Yeah, that is true. There's like a hill between us and the residential area, slight hill.
All right. Thank you. That's the only question I had.
President Bowers?
Thank you. Just following up on the communication piece, so outside of on-site communication and the reliance of a Penn Live article, no other communication has occurred with the residents right on her street?
I've talked to the people at Harrisburg Dairies. We work for them also, and they're aware of the project, and they look forward to it, to be someplace to walk close to for lunch with the
Oh, I
workers.
see.
So.
I haven't gone individually to houses, but like the few neighbors that we have talked to, we have talked to like 5, 10, 15 neighbors, but that's about it. Not door-to-door knocks.
Oh, I see. And during your process with the city through the zoning hearing board or the planning commission, were any neighbors present voicing either their support or opposition for the project?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
I mean, I did have a Facebook post on there that we're gonna be, that I was selling the diners, and I think a lot of neighbors did see that post. So, just because I got comments from them, just, what are you planning on doing type of thing. So I didn't get any negative feedback from them, though.
Did you respond and share what you intended to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone that actually commented, like, what are you planning on doing type of thing.
Okay.
Yep.
But just those that were on Facebook. You may have missed some people that aren't on social media.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Rodriguez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for joining us this evening. Sounds like a great project. I had a question, though. This may be for Mr. Jeffrey. You had mentioned they're going to demo both properties, or will they keep the gas station side erected?
No, I believe their intention is to demo both properties. I think in the Penn Live article they referenced, they had noted that they were looking to sell the diner if somebody bought it, wanted to buy and move it and like relocate it themselves. I don't know if they've gotten a response to that, but other than that, there's like really nothing on that property. And then it sounds like they'll generally be keeping the gas station pumps and canopy where they're at, but it'll be enlarged a bit.
It's gonna be all new, yes, the pumps and.
So the pumps and the canopy will be incorporated into what's now going to be built? It'll be a part of the new development? No?
It's gonna be.
Completely new.
Completely new? So there'll be two entities, two different stores?
No, so there'll be one. It'll look very similar to like a Sheetz or something like that, where you have a large store at one end of the site, the western end of the site, walk-in fridge, your general convenience store, and then on the eastern end of the site is where they'll have the gas station pumps and the canopy.
Or bigger trucks in case they have, okay.
Yeah,
but it'd still
exactly.
be a part of that store, it wouldn't be separate. I only ask because we see a lot of development happening where they leave one part of the property still blighted, not taken care of.
Right.
They only handle one end, and then the city is usually left with the bad end of the stick.
Yeah, no, I don't think this is going to be a case where they have like a phased development or anything. Like all the development on site is meant to be complementary to one another. The convenience store wouldn't exist without the gas and vice versa.
Okay.
So it'll all be done in a complete manner.
And I guess this is a point of information, Neil. Is this timeline sensitive? Is there a cause to expedite this at all?
September 15th is the deemed approved deadline.
Okay, I only ask because I would love to see a bit more resident, buy-in or even conversation. What we see time to time is, I own the land, I do as I please, which I realize legally that could be right, but there are residents still in your immediate area that would have something to say and would like to learn more about your plans. I doubt we'd have time for a town hall, but it'd be great to see some type of forum or something come up in regards to your project, just to see how the residents in the immediate area feel. Because the fact is, nationally, these chicken spots, whether it's Kentucky or Kennedy, they do bring in sometimes the wrong crowd, and without the proper update and security or surveillance, it could become a nuisance. Not saying your project would, but that has been the pattern nationally.
It's gonna be incorporated.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Yes. So the food is gonna be incorporated into the convenience store. We're not opening like a drive-through or anything. It's gonna be a smaller section inside the convenience store.
Okay.
Just kind of like to-go order, to-go food type.
And will your staff serve, or is there, that franchise you're coming in will be doing the training, serve safe certifications, et cetera?
We're gonna have those food safety, serve safe, and everything, but it is gonna be our employees that are gonna be serving.
Okay, so you'll ensure that they have the standard
Yes.
requirement certifications to maintain. Great. Do you have any plans for safety improvements in that area?
Safety improvements,
Yes,
like.
cameras, better lighting.
Oh,
Maybe a
absolutely.
guard at night, I don't know, I'm just asking.
What our plans are, we're definitely gonna be having a lot
I'm
more
asking.
cameras, so, I think a lot more than what we had originally at the original gas station and diner. There'll be all around the building and then inside as well. And then, we might be doing a security guard as well, probably in the evening hours, like, from 3 to later on in the day.
Okay.
Depending on how the situation gets.
Great, great. And then I did hear you say definitely ADA compliant, which is great. Do you have any additional, maybe just accommodations for disabled or handicapped population, maybe bigger aisles or a separate aisle, or, as far as paying, when you pay different cashiers, just asking.
I think we're,
I think we just have like one cashier area, but.
Okay.
But the aisles are new and.
They'll be pretty big anyway.
Pretty wide.
I just wanted to
Make it
ask,
very-
because there will be a great deal of the handicapped population coming in to patron your business, and sometimes it's difficult, but if you have everything compliant, then it shouldn't be an issue to begin with. But just asking for the people at home.
There will be, like the counter spaces will be ADA compliant.
Perfect.
The checkout area, and then as well as like the aisles and stuff. We do plan on keeping it a little bit more open, like an open floor plan, rather than just having
have
a
it
lot
congested, yeah.
a lot of things, just because it's better for us too. And but yeah, we're not trying to be congested in there at
Right.
all.
No, thank you.
Which is why we're doing a larger store.
And what was the name of that franchise again? I'm sorry, the chicken
Crispy Crunchy?
crispy crunchy. Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions? Go ahead, Councilman Lawson.
Thank you. Just kind of to piggyback on what Councilman Rodriguez said, do you know what your hours of operation would be?
Right now, we're thinking 24 hours.
24?
Yes.
Okay. Then that's when you may start looking at saying, okay, do we want to look at security? Because I think when we start getting to the late hours, that's when you start getting to the point where you may see that you're attracting the people that you may not have wanted to attract initially.
I mean, we have been in the city for a while. We have done business there, so we are familiar with what kind of folks we're going to be attracting, what kind of people we're going to be dealing with. But yes, this is going to be a new situation because the place is going to be larger and there's going to be seating area in there too. So we're going to try to we're going to try to keep that safety as for ourselves and then for the other customers as well. So we'll have like bulletproof, cashier areas and stuff like that.
Thank you. That's one concern that we'd have, just overall, is making sure that you stay safe and that our community stays safe. So when you get into 24 hours, you start seeing that, my mom used to say, nothing good happens after midnight. So, after that midnight time frame, you may see a change in clientele. So that's just one of those things we want to make sure that you're prepared for.
One of the things that we've noticed is if you keep it open 24 hours, there's less risk just because they know there's, no one really like closing the place and stuff like that. So that has seemed to be a little safer situation for us.
And not to interject, my apologies. Are you concerned with the after-hours traffic from the nightclubs? Because that usually we're looking for the next spot, club's closed. Hey, we can go sit and eat in here, right?
I don't think we're in the vicinity.
You are though. They're in main vein.
Really?
Most drive right up your street. Absolutely. Just something to consider.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we want to see it succeed. We just want to make sure that you're safe as you're
Yes.
going through this. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and recommend that we add this to the agenda for next week.
Chair Daniels, may I
Yeah.
add one thing? Just to circle back, because your original question was about the deemed approval plus the extension. So just to be clear, City Council would be able to ask for another written extension if you were not ready to make that decision by September 15th. We're just put that out there for you.
Yeah, that place has been pretty crappy for some time, so I think the
Understood.
earlier it could be,
Absolutely.
the better. So, sorry, it looks like both of you have something to say.
No. Yeah, if I could make one last comment, if we could, I think we're looking for maybe a conditional approval based on addressing every item that was on
Right,
on
so,
the list.
so it will be placed on the legislative agenda on Tuesday, and that vote will incorporate all of the conditions.
Yeah, and one of the other things we have with timing is PennDOT's not real quick on responding. A lot of the PennDOT work is just replacing the curbs and the sidewalks around there. So if we could maybe do the demolition and start construction while we're waiting for PennDOT approval, which might not be for several months yet.
That's, if you don't mind communicating with Mr. Knight about the project as it moves along.
And just to be clear, if they did submit demolition permits in the meantime, that's something we're usually going to approve, because that other stuff is like site work that usually comes after your initial demolition, usually ripping up some of the asphalt, things like that. So we'll make sure that any permits that come through, we're still holding them to the conditions of any approvals of either, planning or the zoning hearing board or city council, so that we're not just, kind of giving them carte blanche to move forward with the whole project. We keep an eye on it to make sure we put any conditions in the actual permit reviews to, hey, make sure you're following the conditions of the land development plan so that it all kind of ties together.
That said, any other comments from anyone? Okay, so I think that concludes today's Community and Economic Development Committee's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one more presentation for your committee too. Same person.
Sorry. Where is? So the next item is the LERTA presentation. Mr. Graves, if you don't mind coming forward and present to council.
Hello again. So I actually I didn't get a chance to email you guys some stuff, so I actually have some printouts for each one of you guys.
If you don't mind giving them to Mr. Parker.
Yes, ma'am.
So you can. Thank you.
I printed more, and then I had to edit because of Mike.
So if you don't mind giving us a brief overview, and then we'll open up the questions.
No problem at all. Okay, so this was I guess a request per council to go over like the past 10 years from 2014 to 23. I just want to make a quick note. So this is a full 10 years. So the actual term for this actual LERTA didn't go into effect till 2015, which took effect till 2016 to 2024. So it's going to be a full spectrum of this, a straight 10 years. So for the duration, we're going from 2014 January 1st of 2023 of 8/31, which was last week. Total properties that are actually in the LERTA program assessed by Dauphin County right now are 59. The total applications that were actually submitted over this past 10 years is 677, with a total of $62,175,333.08. Applications by project size, applied properties with $50,000 plus, looking for properties were 72, with a gross amount of $55,750,245. Applied properties under 50,000, there's an edit on there. It's supposed to be 605, not 601. Total exempt amounts for this duration will be $1,439,900. Approved construction projects gained towards $50,000 with 34. Projects proposals. This actually gives an extension of what the actual projects were. Repair and replacement or existing structures were 39. Alterations and existing structures were 17. Parking lot structures were 1. New construction was consistent of 14, and additions were 1. For the last one, there's an actual edit. If you actually have your pins to actually add to that for property classifications, there are 3 to add on besides residencies. So you have residencies from 1 to 3 stories, which would be 43. Mixed use, so apartments with an actual store access on the bottom, that was 6. Apartment units only were 9, and straight just office buildings were 1. So this was just a brief overview. So the approximate approval rate for the 677, that I can go into the reason why it's so low, is 8.71%.
Okay, and so we see that there were 59 properties in the program, and there were 677 applications altogether. Could you give
Yes.
us a summary of the reasons why the applications failed? Or
It's an easy one. The reason why they did fail is just the fact because of actually what the people were actually applying for. So usually when you're applying for there is either basically for structure, renovation, new build, new construction. So you would have, I think we might have talked about this some months back. A lot of people that were applying for things like basically home like fix-ups as far as like a furnace or getting shingles done to a roof or a window, things that wouldn't apply to an existing or actually give you an abatement for it, because it's not going to change the value of anything in your home. So you have a lot of, that's one of the things that they were trying to cut down on as far as with the county, because they receive the applications and have to go through each and every one of them and see if they're actually going to be viable or not.
anything else?
That is really it for the, as far as for the numbers. I know one of the questions I know you guys asked as far as any recommendations that I may have, like going forward. Me personally, this would probably be, not probably going to express it in the email, this would probably be something that we would want to talk to as far as like with Dauphin County and also with the school district before we actually make a physical, like an official public meeting about it, so we can get their take on what they think that we should go forward with the LERTA. And I said there probably are some things that obviously probably need to change to actually try to actually gain more as far as the economic development side, as far as renovations and new builds in a lot of areas that we have in the city. Is just I feel that we all just need to put our heads together to see what we can come up with.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and open up for the questions to council. Councilman Rodriguez.
No questions right now about the abatement. I appreciate all the information, Mr. Graves. Thank you.
Okay. President Bowers.
Thank you. I just had a question regarding the time frame. I think we are under the impression that this LERTA expires on December 31st, but it seems like your time frame is different, so I was just trying to gain
because the time frame on our application is from 2016 to 2024. So if I'm right about that, Neil, it ends, what, next year? You have to double check on that. This December? Okay. That's where
we were all under the impression that it ends December 31st of 2023.
All right, I'll probably get back to you on that. I guess we'll double check, because I know on the actual application, the physical application itself for the fill out says from 16 to 24.
Okay.
So we'll double check on that. I know this one technically wasn't a full year because this was put in 2015. So that would be something we probably have to get back to you, but to get some good clarification on that on all ends.
Okay. I think that would be helpful for everybody to know when it officially expires. But that was my only question. Thank you.
Vice President.
It is December 31st, 2024.
December 31st, 2024?
You got one
Okay.
more year.
Okay, thank you.
Vice President Green.
Thank you. I don't really have many questions. I guess the numbers are a lot lower than I expected. 59.
Over a 10-year period, yes.
Yes, so the numbers are just a lot lower than I expected, so it's quite shocking. I'd love to sit down and discuss and have that conversation with the different entities involved on how we can increase that, especially for our residents, because I feel like they're the ones that aren't getting the best advantage out of it. So that's a discussion for another time, but thank you for the information.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Lawson.
Thank you. I'll sound like an echo. We really would have expected that there would have been more participation. Yes, we want to talk with our stakeholders, but even in the meantime, until this expires, how do we let people know how to properly apply for this and to properly, put forward their projects instead of sending us a lot of, just typical home repair, as opposed to, doing something that's improving the value and where they can actually take advantage of the abatement?
That question, I think that would probably be a question best answered if we sit down and talk in a group to figure out how we can actually get that solved.
Yeah, and that was probably more of a rhetorical question that I asked at that point, but yes, absolutely.
they're not messing up their applications. That is not,
Yeah, they're not.
they are applying
They're
for
just
things that
applying.
will not change the value of
Yeah.
their home. A tax abatement is on the increased value of the property. So when you put a roof on, you don't increase the value of your property. When you pave your driveway, you don't do it. When you put an addition on,
Yeah, basically actual structural
you know,
things.
that's what you get. So it's a big project that has to value it. But I will say, having sat through all of it, our design is defective. It discourages projects that could get abatement, and it's something the council and the school board and the county ought to look at. But we created, through a lot of input from a lot of people, a process that does not work. But we had $1 billion of new construction with a defective LRTA. You might wonder what we'd actually have with an effective LRTA.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a way sort of look at it, whether we're hamstringing the people of Harrisburg all this time. And the economic arc is very real if you take away some of the brakes that we put on there.
I'm enthusiastic for that conversation, so let's please try to work in that direction.
Okay, Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you, Councilwoman Daniels. Thank you for being here today, Mr. Graves, and explaining this to us. I just had 2 questions, and maybe they're more like comment questions, but the first one was, would you be able to give us a breakdown of who those 59 people, maybe not who they were, but what their, like, if it was apartment buildings, if it was office, if it was housing, or not housing, but someone's a resident? Would you be able to tell us, like, who exactly those 59 applicants, like, what kind of property it was? Or email it to us if you don't have those.
Yeah, I can give you, because I know I can give you probably a little bit something more than just the numbers.
Oh,
'Cause it's
I'm
on, yeah, it's on the
sorry.
bottom of that. It's on the bottom of that form.
Residents. Oh, yeah, you did say.
Yeah, for the
But then I
for the
thought
property
I thought there was
classification.
another
For the
breakdown,
property
okay.
the classifications, yep. That's
So
on
it
the
was
bottom.
43 residents?
Yeah, 43,
Oh,
yeah,
6
residential
mixed use.
homes, yeah, mixed use, apartments only, and 1 office building.
I'm sorry, and it says
No,
property
you're good.
classification.
You're good.
I think that, it got me too, the number was so low. So I
Yeah, I
was
had to-
not,
yeah.
I should have went and added those together and I would have got my 59. My other question was, what's the deadline that you're allowed to apply for LRTA after you acquire a property in the city, that a resident or developer is allowed to apply for the LRTA? What's that deadline? You probably said it before, but I don't remember it.
It varies. I know talking with the county, one of the hardest things is trying to calculate a renovation, because again, you have no idea exactly what they're actually working on or if they've already worked on it prior to. New construction primarily is supposed to be 6 months, and that's before you're actually putting anything up. If you just have foundation, there are leeways as far as lien sheets for that, because you're actually not actually physically building. My recommendation for anyone, and I always say this, anybody who actually calls or contacts me about LRTA, is to actually fill your LRTA out when you actually do your permits, not wait. That way because you already have the application right there when you actually get your permit back. Okay. So just fill everything out, and for the most part, try to give an estimate of the scope of work. That way everything can fall on like a ladder, because a lot of times you're gonna go back for multiple permits. So if you have a breakdown of a project that's maybe like $100,000, and maybe you're doing like an apartment building, and each apartment's only gonna cost $20,000, you're probably not gonna meet it by spec per each apartment, but if combined total, because you're doing one total project, it will meet all. So usually just try to, like, I tell people, like, to at least try to put everything you can, as much information you can as far as the dollar, even if it's an estimate, because again, dollars do change. Just to make sure you fill everything out right then and there, so you don't have a lapse or you have to keep going back and forth to figure out if I missed something or not. Because if you missed the deadline, we can't do anything about it.
Okay, I kind of understand a little bit more. And is the whole point of LRTA too, I think Solicitor Grover kind of touched on it, I'm adding value to my property, so like an addition or redoing a basement that wasn't finished or something. No, okay, but adding an addition.
You're looking at like structural.
Structural, okay.
Yeah.
And is the whole point of that saying too, this is what I would have been paying for taxes prior to that, but now I would be paying the city more taxes once this is all done? Like, that's the, okay.
Yeah.
And that's the 10-year abatement. So basically, you invest to improve the value to the point that the assessed value, the appraisal, is much higher.
Right.
Everything that went up you're not paying a tax on for 10 years.
Uh-huh, okay.
Under the current model.
Okay. It's almost like interest on a credit card.
Where you're basically getting the benefit, the incentive that's going to be cheaper for you for this 10
Yeah,
years.
for the most part,
For
you're
the 10
paying,
years,
yeah, you're
and then
paying like a
afterwards.
deferred amount for the most part, because you're still, I know a lot of people think I'm exempt from everything.
No,
You're
no,
not.
it's just a
You're
lower
not, you're still,
amount.
yeah.
Okay. I understand a little bit better. Yeah, but I definitely would like more conversations too with seeing with all entities to see how we can improve it for the community and developers too. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. I think maybe what would also be helpful is if you and Mr. Knight could give us a little bit more context in terms of like where does this fit in terms of the larger construction picture for the city.
Yeah,
And that would be
me and Mr. Knight talk a lot about different like ordinances or things that we can actually do in the city. Some things may have to change, some things may stay the same, but I know it's going to have to be a collective effort because it just can't come from directly from us. So it's going to have to be a collective effort to see where we can actually make this go in the future.
Yeah, and it would good to have the data to see
Yeah.
where everything is before we make recommendations or start thinking about what to change. Yeah. So I mean, there is no rush, but on that, but we can. It would help facilitate conversations about where LERTA goes.
Yeah, I've actually already had a few talks with a couple members from Dauphin County. I know this time is kind of like their heavy season right now because they're dealing with a lot of tax properties now. So we probably won't have an actual discussion with them prior to like maybe after or mid-October. So.
Okay, so I think that's it. So now the business for community and economic development is concluded. Thank you for your time, everyone.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comment. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Please state your name and your address for the meeting record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please share the vicinity in which you live. You'll have 2 minutes to share your comment. Mr. Parker will serve as our timekeeper, and we'll begin to my right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one, anyone in the middle section?
So, my name is Kirsten Miller, and I'm from the city of Harrisburg. I want to say Allison Hill, but I don't put myself in the box, so I won't. I have 2 minutes, so I'm going to leave off where I left off. So I'm going to speak on in the city of being told by Gina Johnson that the city of Harrisburg is done with me. It would take a lot of power and a lot of resources and connections for you to say that you were done with me for asking for help. But in this process of me speaking up, I also have to speak for the kids and the victims and the survivors and the homeless. And I only came here to actually speak on the homeless platform, only because I would see Angela Fox or Angel Fox and I don't even know, Aisha Mobley in a restaurant spending over $52 in bread coins that is for the homeless. That doesn't make sense to me when half the homeless doesn't know about it. Then I come here last time and I see Corey, executive director of the Daily Bread, wanting to present things for funding, but yet the homeless is eating expired food on the weekend. But she can buy bundles of hair and she can go and get catering for retirement, for a party, yet and still the homeless is eating a scoop of 3 pieces of hot dog and a scoop of baked beans. That makes no sense to me. When they can come present and come here and ask for money, and then we ask where it go to. You guys don't see it. Y'all not eating in there with us. Y'all don't see it. I also, as I'm going to speak up for what I'm going through and what I have overcame, I want to speak for them too. I wish they would come up and come speak for themselves. But I would definitely be the first, hopefully not the last. Wearing a suit doesn't mean anything. And one thing I will always say, and I'm very, very humble, everybody that sits in here, we're local. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the middle section? Oh, Brian, okay.
Thank you, President Bowers. And I apologize for this. I don't want to take away time from public comment, but I would like to follow up on for you and, well, the committee, Vice President Green, I was remiss in leaving out an important point about, I was walking through the audit fee. Is protocol, can I continue, or would you rather wait till public comment is completed? Okay.
You can continue.
This won't take long. I mentioned, the audit fee and the increase, the scope modification, and of course, part of that was some of the work that I was delegated related to more. I mentioned budget management, and that is true. But really, what I was remiss on, I left out. The most significant thing that happened last year, and earlier this year, of course, was the new ERP financial system, both the planning and then the actual implementation, which we're still doing, of course. And that really was the major burden as far as taking me a bit off task when it came to the flow of the audit preparation. So I left that out, but that's very important to me to express that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone to my left that would like to offer public comment? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, the time is 7:50 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.